come on, don't waste your time explaining that garbage. Let's go.
Just a minute, let me finish. Ladies, gentlemen, the film you are about to see today is an homage to the no reason, that most powerful element of style.
You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
My good friend Trent likes to recount a story of going to the movies to see From Dusk Till Dawn. And if you've ever seen that movie, it starts off as a crime drama, and for no discernible reason at all, midway through it becomes a vampire movie. It's like two movies stuck together. It was a collaboration between Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez, and it certainly shows. And Trent went to the restroom at the exact moment of the vampire turn, so he didn't see the very minimal setup. And when he came back from the bathroom, he had to check to make sure he was in the right theater. And we've all had that moment of watching a movie and seeing it take a turn and wonder, like, is this the same movie? What's happening in the film? I see obviously a lot of movies, so it happens to me more times than normal people with social lives and sporting events to go to. But and not to say that the film I'm talking about had one of those turn moments, but I think you could say the whole movie had that. So this episode is sponsored by Patreon pledger Hindle. Hindle's one of the people behind the scenes here at the show. He's like the unofficial silent host of the show. He does so much for it. And he's always picking interesting movies for me to watch based on his Patreon pledge. Patrick always picks bizarro awfulness, and Hindle's a lot more thoughtful. And originally he had a classic film that I've only seen a couple of times that it's one of the best films ever made, but it's going to be hard. Eventually I'm going to get to that one, and it'll be difficult to put together a cohesive thought that you haven't heard before. But that's the danger in reviewing older movies. I don't review the movies that came out this week, So Hindle picked a film called Rubber. Now, it's interesting in that I had actually wanted to see this movie and I'd never seen it. Rubber is a very strange movie. Rubber is a movie about a sentient tire, a rubber tire that can move of its own accord, and it travels across the desert, blowing things up using its mind. This is a real movie, ladies and gentlemen, and even though it is schlock, it is schlock of the highest order. And what do we say on this show all the time? Yes, we always say that there's always room for schlock when you're making your movie choices. Not everything has to be Schindler's List or Amadeus. It's okay. I love to put in garbage. I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but I bought a Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling DVD box set. My wife was like, "You're really going to watch it?" This sounds familiar, like I've told this story before. But yes, I was watching Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. So, sue me. But Rubber is schlock. But here's the thing. Even though it's schlock, it knows that it's schlock. It does not strive to be anything but schlock. And in that respect, it succeeds more than a lot of higher profile, higher budgeted Hollywood pictures. because of one simple reason. And the crux of this show is going to be you have to follow your own rules. You can make up whatever those rules are, but you have to follow them. And if you don't follow them, if you break those rules, you got to tell us why. Why can you break those rules? Right? Rubber sets up a universe where, for no reason, he's not Johnny Five. He's not struck by lightning. They don't drip mutant ooze on him. The tire just wakes up and decides to roll across the desert. And you know what? I have no idea how they did this. I don't know how a low-budget film, because when I thought about watching this movie, I thought, I'm going to see a lot of static shots where somebody off-camera is rolling a tire into frame. But that's not the case. There's actually some thought put behind it. And you see his, quote-unquote journey of discovering his powers and his limitations and the rules by which he's governed. And I'm doing air quotes. And as he makes his way across the desert, if you do him wrong, Rubber will kill you. And if you treat him right, he will leave you alone. And that's it would be the whole movie if they didn't add this weird bizarro layer onto the top of it. And the bizarro layer is that there's a group of about 20 people who arrive in the desert, are handed binoculars, and are told that they are watching Rubber's adventures as a movie. And they represent us, the viewer. They are the viewers of the movie. Except that it's being done in real time, and they're not allowed to leave, eat, or fend for themselves. So it's very strange. Rubber develops a fixation with a very pretty foreign girl and watches her take a shower while the people watching the movie comment on her body. So, like I said, it's layer after layer after layer bizarro. There's a police officer who in the beginning gives us a little monologue that sometimes things in movies just happen for no reason. And you know what? I'm actually a fan of happens for no reason. It's a great plot device that says anything can happen at any time. And unlike, say, the Star Wars prequels, not everything has to be connected. You want to connect the end of your movie with the beginning of the movie, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Set up, resolution, set up, conflict resolution. But it's okay that not everybody knows each other. You can meet new people. Yoda doesn't have to fight alongside Chewbacca for me to care about the Wookiee battle on Kashyyyk as we go back again to the Star Wars well. Rey, though she escapes with the Millennium Falcon, doesn't necessarily have to be Luke Skywalker's daughter, but that's probably where they're going to go with it. But in Rubber, some things just sort of happen, and we're treated to this bizarre sequence where food is finally brought to the viewing audience. They've stayed overnight. We've met the pushy, chubby guy, the bitchy young girls, the father and son, and the sassy black lady. The black lady is always sassy. Nothing wrong with that. She's very funny in the film. And when the food is brought, it results in everybody dying. And once they're dead, we join back with Rubber's adventures that seem to have come to an end because Rubber only exists while the audience is watching. And once no one's looking, he ceases to be alive. Isn't that the opposite of Invisible Boy from Mystery Men? He's only invisible if nobody's looking at him, right? And the sheriff arrives to tell everybody we can all settle down. The audience is dead. We don't have to do this anymore. But what he didn't count on is that there's an old guy who doesn't eat the food and is still watching. So, in a weird twist, the characters, the people putting on this charade, had no idea how to end it. other than killing the audience. So we're left with, how do you end it? Where do we go from here? And that's where the film really is winking big time at the audience, because I can recall a dozen major blockbuster movies where you can tell they got to the end and they didn't know what to do. And maybe they thought, you know what, people are just tuned out by then. I mean, isn't that the crux of all those awful Transformer movies? Like, they literally make no sense. And yet, people go to them again and again and again because of giant robots. And it's like, well, we don't really have an end here. We don't know really what's going to happen. I mean, at the end of the first Transformers movie, they dumped Megatron at the bottom of the ocean, the deepest part of the world. And in part 2, they just went and got him. That's fine. That's fine. And Revenge of the Fallen doesn't even refer to Megatron. So we can see in these big movies that Hollywood does. I mean, look at The Lone Ranger. None of it makes any sense. All these big, mega Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, At World's End. You can tell they got to the end and they just sort of shrugged and said, we'll just throw crap on the screen until the audience is numb. And we're actually watching it in rubber play out in real time. We don't know what to do. We've never gotten this far. So they hatched this cockamamie scheme to lure. I mean, the tire, in the meantime, has murdered a family and has settled down watching not NASCAR, but Formula One racing. And yes, I even though I don't follow sports, I know the difference. And so they're going to lure him out with a dummy, and when he blows the dummy's head off, it'll ignite dynamite and blow him up. And it's so completely ridiculous, and yet you get it because most importantly, we've set up the rules of the universe. And the rules of the universe are, this is not supposed to be going on because the audience is dead, but one guy's still alive, so we got to keep going. Well, I don't know what we do. Well, this is what we can do, I guess. And then finally, the audience itself, the last surviving audience member, actually joins the festivities. And when Rubber turns to him, he goes, no. I'm just watching. And then he gets killed. So it's punishing you. You know, maybe the message of that is you the viewer, by continuing to sit through these monster, ridiculous crap fest films, and not just getting up to walk out. My punishment is I'm going to be killed by the very crap that I'm watching. And what a sad statement that is. But how many movies have you gone to like, oh my God, it's never going to end? And when it finally does end, you're like, that's the best they could come up with? You know, I'm spoiled. Back to the Future has a perfect ending. Star Wars has a perfect ending. Luke blows the Death Star up, saves the galaxy. What else is there left to do? Movies today, like, I couldn't even tell you what happened at the end of Age of Ultron. You know, Ultron lifted a city in the middle of poor Europe, looked like the building Pinocchio ride is in at Disneyland, and he lifted it in the air, and he was going to drop it back down, and that was going to do something like an asteroid, or I don't know. I have no idea. And maybe my punishment is I sat through that. I didn't just get up and leave like I should have, but I can't. I'm glued to that seat. I rarely have ever walked out of a movie. And Rubber is saying, just get up and leave. Don't involve yourself. If it's going this far south, get out while you can. And what a funny message in a independent movie that is. You know, it's very, very bizarre. And you start to have, you know, it's what they wanted. You start to have emotions for the stupid tire. And they blow him up. And it's not that they blow him up. The sheriff walks in and just shreds him. Comes out, throws the shreds down, and goes, look, we're done. And then they go, oh no, he's been reincarnated as a tricycle. You're like, oh God, this is as dumb as any big budget Hollywood movie. And yet this film is unashamed to just tell it like it is. You know, because the big movies like Iron Man 3, if you've sat through this crap fest, ends with an army of self-propelled, self-guided Iron Man suits. They don't even need Tony Stark anymore. They're running of their own accord. And you go, well, if he's got these, why isn't he just sitting back having a martini and letting these power suits do all the work? And then you hardly ever see him again. Then they show up at the end of Age of Ultron. Like, I don't even know. Like, I don't even care. Like, I just don't care. And that's where not following like if the Marvel worlds are connected, we hear so much about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If that's a connected thing, then somebody has to be plotting this out. And you have to make sense of it all so that we, the audience, are like, wow, I hadn't even thought of that. Oh my God, it didn't even occur to me. Wow, it's a callback. They don't do that, though. They really don't. I wish they did. Here's an example of, you set up the rules of this universe, not me. In Ant-Man, I enjoyed Ant-Man. I thought it was very entertaining. I was happy that it wasn't about the actual end of the world, because that's all these Marvel movies are. But the whole point of Ant-Man, and the reason Ant-Man is a superhero, is that when he shrinks down to the size of an ant, he still maintains the same mass as a full-size man. Like, that's the conceit of Ant-Man. So if his shrink ray shrinks something down, it still has the same physical properties as if it were big, i.e., Michael Douglas can't carry a tank around as a keychain. Because in the world of Ant-Man, according to your rules, it would weigh the same as a regular-sized tank. Now, I thought it was funny when it exploded out of the building, and I'm like, oh, the keychain, because it had a big keychain on the end. That's clever. But something in the back of your brain says, oh, well, they're breaking their own rules. And that's where movies go south. Now, Ant-Man didn't go south. I enjoyed the hell out of Ant-Man. And I wouldn't label it as schlock in any way. A better example would be the big budget mega reboot of The Stepford Wives, starring Matthew Broderick and Nicole Kidman, among others. Directed by Frank Oz. And if you've ever seen The Stepford Wives, they move to Stepford, and the wives are replaced with robots. Perfect robots who act like the perfect wife, and all the guys are so happy. And it's very chilling. And this one, you can tell they started out making the robots. And in the end, they're not robots. They're cyber enhanced. And no mention is made as to where the change took place, other than we'll just figure the audience doesn't notice. Well, we did. And that's why that movie tanked. And that's why if you went to the store now, you couldn't even find it. Imagine how many movies star big box office draw celebrities. They come out, they vanish, and then you never hear from them again. And I remember not that long ago, and I'll say 10 years, you could go to Best Buy, and odds are if the movie was on disc, they had it. You go now, man, and if it didn't come out last week or is a movie that everybody knows, they don't have it. You got to go to Amazon. You got to go to eBay. You got to go to Download or whatever. Or in my case, it's so freaking obscure, I got to ask Hendel, because Hendel can track down any movie. And he tracked down Rubber. The only way to get Rubber is YouTube $2.99. And I didn't want to do that. And Rubber, for all of its wink, wink, smack, smack at you, the audience, actually ends with Rubber, now the tricycle, leading an army of rubber tires down the road as they march into Hollywood. Like, we're coming for you guys next. You know, it was a funny sentiment. It's a very entertaining movie. It's a very brisk, like 82 minutes. It went fast. Same length as a movie like Elf Bowling, and yet I didn't nod off. Elf Bowling took 3-4 sittings because I kept falling asleep. I didn't fall asleep during Rubber. It's very entertaining. Self-aware. Bizarre. Completely bizarre. You know? And I love bizarre movies. Like, I always have a soft spot for very strange movies. When I worked at the video store, we would seek out the most obscure titles. There's a movie called Frankenhooker. I think I've talked about it before on the show. About a guy whose girlfriend gets killed, so he saves her brain, and he starts killing hookers and stitching them together to make his girlfriend back to life as the Frankenhooker. That's a real movie, folks. Trying to think of some other schlock I've sat through. The Mystical Knights of the Oingo Boingo. There's a movie, The Forbidden Zone. One of Danny Elfman's early projects. It stars Jim Varney. You might know him as Ernest. And you know what? It doesn't have to be like obscure schlock. I mean, I don't know if I've ever talked about it, but there was a tape that came in a box of Christmas Around the World merchandise called Mondo, New York. Mondo, New York's really hard to find. It's a documentary filmed in the mid to late 80s about nightlife in New York, and it's crazy. It shows a guy biting the heads off mice. It shows a transgender bald woman singing about F you. Like, it's hysterical. It's got, I want to say it's Lydia Lunch opening it. You know, whatever you want, hippies, junkies, flunkies, monkeys, we got it. And I just remember, like, the trailer tape came packed in a box of Christmas stuff, and I watched a lot, and I never got to see the movie. I went looking for it, and I still can't find it. But there are big budget bizarro movies where directors are not afraid to take a chance and make something completely different. Like, have you ever seen After Hours? After Hours is Griffin Dunn and Linda Fiorentini, I think, and a huge cast. It's basically one of those, it's in New York, it takes place on a single night, and for this guy, everything that can go wrong goes wrong. And it was directed by Martin Scorsese after Raging Bull. 84, 85, has a great cameo by Cheech and Chong. Crazy movie. Big screen pedigree. I mean, Martin Scorsese, it don't get bigger than that. And he made bizarre. Like, there's another one, John Landis, Into the Night, with Jeff Goldblum and Michelle Pfeiffer. Another one of those, everything that could go wrong will, but that one's in L.A. Great. Earth Girls Are Easy, Gina Davis, Jeff Goldblum, Jim Carrey, Damon Wayans, Julie Brown, not downtown Julie Brown, but Because I'm Blonde, Julie Brown. I love Earth Girls Are Easy, if only because it's a love letter to Los Angeles in the late 80s, where I grew up. Really fun, candy, dayglow movie about dating and goofing off and nightlife. Like, really, Gina Davis has never looked better. Oh my God. But yeah, I just always been a fan of, going to the video store and like, oh, I see the new releases, but what else you got? What's hiding in the back? What have we got on the fringe over here? It's hard to believe, like, the first Hellraiser was fringe. We had to really go out of our way to see the first Hellraiser because it was a bizarre... It's Pinhead's in it for not that long, but it's mostly just a psychosexual horror movie about desire and lust. All the things that get you banished to the Cenobite realm. It wasn't until Hellraiser 2 that they really everybody likes Pinhead and the boxes, so that's what the movies are going to be about. But the first one's really, that's Clive Barker at his blood ooziest, sexy creep factor. There's a scene where the main villain is in hell. And his version of hell is he's in a room that he can't get out of, and these drawers open up, and it's these writhing sexual women that are promising everything. And the minute you reach for them, they vanish. And he's like, this is my hell. And you're like, oh, this is darker than I imagined. But yeah, Freaked. You ever seen Freaked? Alex Winter, Randy Quaid, Mr. T, Brooke Shields. Alex Winter had a nice little cozy career going on. It sort of got derailed. I know he's become a documentary filmmaker, so good for him. But he had a good run with Lost Boys, Bill and Ted, Bogus Journey, Freaked, right in the middle of that. And these movies were like, if you went to the video store, either you got lucky and it was in, or they had one copy and it was always checked out. I mean, oh my God. My generation, you don't know pain until you've gone to the video store 10 times in a row looking for a movie, and they keep telling you, like, it's checked out, man. It's checked out. And you're like, who's got it? I'll call them. I want it now. Because there were so many movies that the stores would only get one copy of. It wasn't like, again, it wasn't the big budget new releases that they had 50 of. These were like the weirdo movies. Like, oh, you only got one? Oh, man. Tapeheads? You only got one copy of Tapeheads? You only got one copy of Lair of the White Worm by Ken Russell? What do you mean? My store got 2 copies of The Abyss and 10 copies of Leviathan. This is not right. So, Rubber, while I'm watching it, I'm just reminded of all those bizarre movies that you would rent at the video store, and just like, wow, Return of the Living Dead with Linnea Quigley. Linnea Quigley gets all her gear off in the cemetery. I remember reading Fangoria, and they're like, Linnea Quigley in Return of the Living Dead does a cryptise. A cryptise? That's a striptease at a crypt? I am all about it. And there was a whole run in the mid-'80s of all these crappy horror movies put out by like Empire and New World. Like the original Troll with Sonny Bono, The Stuff, Dungeon Master. I love Dungeon Master. Dungeon Master, this guy has to battle all these levels to save his girlfriend. And one of the battles is against the heavy metal band Wasp. Like he has to battle Wasp. Space Hunter, Adventures in the Forbidden Zone, Battle Beyond the Stars. Oh, man. So many good movies. Schlock. All Schlock. And all of them, most of them, not afraid to wear schlock right on their sleeve. And that's the mark of fun, good filmmaking. Not everything has to be high art. Even Tarantino's made schlock. Because I would say that the man who gave us Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown and Kill Bill 1 and 2. I mean, Kill Bill 1 and 2 is exploitation, there's no doubt. But Death Proof is schlock of the highest order. It has no plot. It is car wreck pornography, and that's all. I don't know if I could even sit through it again. It's just not my... I sat through the original 3-hour Grindhouse where you got Planet Terror, a bunch of trailers, and then Death Proof, and I was like, I can't believe I sat through all 3 hours. The trailers were really good in the middle, though. Eli Roth, Thanksgiving, and Nicolas Cage, and Dr. Fu Manchu. But I guess the moral of this episode is you don't have... you can watch garbage if it's honest garbage. Because so many of these big budget movies, like, I sat through Battleship. Oh my God, Battleship. One of the worst big budget pieces of crap I have ever seen. It literally makes no sense. Transformers 1, 2, 3. I didn't see 4. You're not fooling me a 4th time. The Island. You ever see The Island with Scarlett Johansson and Ewan McGregor, Michael Bay? These movies are so bad. What about I, Robot? Now, I read I, Robot. Isaac Asimov's Robot Foundation novels are some of the finest science fiction ever put to page. And that movie is a 2.5-hour commercial for Converse shoes. Oh my God, with Shia LaBeouf. What a piece of crap. Gotta be ashamed. That was directed by Alex Proyas too, the guy who directed The Crow. What happened to him? Oh, I know what happened to him. He just completed the Schlock circle by releasing Gods of Egypt last weekend, the biggest bomb of the year. Oh, Alex. Alex, you made The Crow. Great movie. You made Dark City, one of my favorite sci-fi movies. Dark City is a masterpiece. And then you make Gods of Egypt. But not everybody is immune to it. The Wachowski brothers made Bound, The Matrix, and then they made The Matrix 2 and 3. You know? They're not very good. And you know why they're not good? Because all the rules they set up in the first one get broken. That's what I'm talking about. Cinematic rules, bringing it full circle. If you tell me that Neo can see the Matrix, you're saying I'll be able to dodge bullets? No, I'm saying that when the time comes, you won't have to. Right? So why is he fighting agents in the beginning of part 2? Ooh, upgrades. No, not good enough. Last time we met, Neo was a god. So what happened? And that's where you lose your audience. That's where you lose your audience. You know, imagine if in Star Wars, Luke's told about the Force. I mean, in the end, he's told it's not a religion. It's a organic being in your bloodstream. Oh, wait, that really happened. So, whatever. I had a good time watching Rubber. Some of the best times I've had as a teenager were watching crappy movies. I mean, the first Terminator is a masterpiece, but it's schlock. The effects are not very good. I mean, he looks terrible when he's got his skin coming off, but you don't care because the plot is so well crafted. You know, Cameron's a master of plotting. The guy does it almost better than anybody. Look at Titanic. Titanic is masterfully plotted. Whether you like the movie or not, you cannot deny that moving Rose and Jack through the ship so that they're present at every key moment that we've read about in the history books is masterful plotting. That's how you do it, folks. That's how you do it. You ever seen True Lies? True Lies is a masterpiece. I could do an hour and a half on how good True Lies is. I saw True Lies on the day I got married. And there's no better movie about marriage than True Lies. And I'll get into that in a future episode. But want to say thanks to Patreon pledger Hindle for supporting the show and picking bizarro movies for me to watch. Rubber is a very top of the list bizarre, but it's not ashamed of it. It revels in it, and it does stick to its rules right to the end, so it is worth checking out. Sometimes you see schlock and it's cringeworthy. You want to kill yourself. And sometimes you see it and you're like, oh, this is not bad. These guys, I mean, Clerks is schlock, low budget, cheap, and yet it resonates because Kevin Smith's dialogue is so sharp. You know, there's a million fine-looking women in the world, but they don't all bring lasagna to work. Most of them just cheat on you. You know what I mean? I've done a whole episode on Clerks. Check out our Patreon page if there's a movie you'd like me to review. If you want to hear my idiot opinion on something, this is your channel, folks. And all of your pledges go straight to the show to pay for the hosting and all the other stuff that goes along with putting the show up. Because what I learned early on, podcasting ain't free. But if you want to do it, if you need to do it, you will find a way. We're up to 54 on our ratings on iTunes. Thank you to everyone who stopped by. I saw Sean Marshall left one, and I'm not looking. I'm trying to remember. Chris Merritt and a couple others. So thank you, everybody, for supporting the show. Chris Merritt's a funny guy. He listens to the show, and then he live tweets me or live Facebook post what he's listening to. And sometimes, like, it's a week later and I'm like, oh my God, I remember that. My proclamations, my idiot proclamations. So what are you going to do, right? WonderCon is coming up. We will be at WonderCon in the small press area, table 9, showcasing my book, The Sixth Key series, and also 91 Reasons. We'll have time boxes and novels for sale. If you're a fan of the show, please, please, please look us up and tell us that you like the show, because we love meeting anybody who listens to the show. Special shout out to Noel, who works at Disney's California Adventure, and introduced us to the Animation Academy. We'd never seen it before, and he taught us how to draw Mickey Mouse. And the guy's a very talented artist, very funny guy. If you're at California Adventure, seek him out and check out his show. He's a big fan of 91 Reasons, and we're a big fan of his. So it's reciprocal. It's the circle of geek life, right? The Oscars were terrible. I'm convinced I shouldn't tune in anymore because it just gets worse and worse every year. This year, not only was it boring, but it was completely pointless. Completely pointless. Worthless show. Dirty, foul mouth. Doesn't need to be. Continues the spiraling down of class in our society. What the hell happened to class is what I want to know. There's nothing wrong with being classy. On that note, folks, again, thanks for your support. You can check out our Patreon page at patreon.com. Search 91 Reasons. I am Jeff Tucker. I am the voice. Thank you to Hindle for supporting this episode of 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?
In the Steven Spielberg movie E.T., why is the alien brown? No reason. In Love Story, why did the two characters fall madly in love with each other? No reason. In Oliver Stone's JFK, why is the president suddenly assassinated by some stranger? No reason. In the excellent Chainsaw Massacre by Tobe Hooper, why don't we ever see the characters go to the bathroom or wash their hands like people do in real life? Absolutely no reason. Worse, in The Pianist by Polanski, how come this guy has to hide and live like a bum when he plays the piano so well? Once again, the answer is no reason. I could go on for hours with more examples. The list is endless. You probably never gave it a thought. But all great films, without exception, contain an important element of no reason. And you know why? Because life itself is filled with no reason. Why can't we see the air all around us? No reason. Why are we always thinking? No reason. Why do some people love sausages and other people hate sausages?